In the previous episode, we discussed how suppressing and repressing our emotions is beneath most, if not all, of our problems in our life. All the suffering, all the pain, all the issues. And in this episode, what I want to talk about is what that leads to, which is the other thing that's massively connected to this, that's underneath most, if not all, of the challenges we face, which goes back to the beginning of my journey with all this stuff, which I'll talk a little bit about. And that is shame, or the feeling of not being good enough, or having low self-esteem, low self-worth. Those last two phrases people use for lots of different things. So we'll use interchangeably, but basically what we're talking about, the feeling deep inside of not being good enough, not feeling like we are enough as a human deep inside ourselves, which is effectively what shame is. And this, as I say, this massively ties into my journey with all of this stuff. When I started this, you may know some of my background story, you may not, but the basic summary of where I was I had a life that to the outside world looked picture perfect. I was a corporate lawyer. I had my own law firm. I had other businesses. I was married. I had a big city centre apartment, drove a flash car, owned multiple properties, investment properties. So the outside world looked happy. You know, if you saw me on a night out, I was I was drinking, having a great time with people, laughing and joking a lot. But behind the scenes, I was depressed and suicidal. I was ready to end it all. And I ripped everything apart, started doing therapy and coaching and learning about human behavior and psychology and emotions, started learning about all this stuff. And my big breakthrough right at the start was I had low self-esteem. I was full of shame. I didn't feel good enough. And that breakthrough, as soon as I learned it, I was like, fuck yes, this is it. It made no sense at all to the people around me. I still remember telling my mum, a couple of my best mates, and they were like, it's bollocks. Like, you are the most fucking confident person we know. There's no way this is you. And I was like, no, it is. And I knew, because obviously I live inside my own body and my own mind. And what I started realizing then was the difference between external confidence and internal self-esteem, how we present ourselves to the outside world compared to how we feel about ourselves deep inside. And often the ego, which is designed to keep us safe and to meet our needs, hides how we truly feel deep inside because it's so focused on the outside world. This is so true of so many successful and high performing people. They have an external persona that makes them look very, very confident, but internally they're fucked. They do not feel good enough. And this is, I say it about what in the world we live in, the Western world, we have built a world that is drives. We've built a world that the people who get to the top are often driven by low self-esteem, by the feeling of not being good enough. Because think about it. If you don't feel good enough, if you are full of shame, and at the same time you are good at something, so you're good at business, you're good at making money, you're good at sport, you're good at singing, you're good at acting, you're good at dancing, you're going to do everything you possibly can to drive yourself, to prove to the outside world that you are good enough, and to prove to yourself that you're good enough. So this internal struggle combined with any talent drives you to the top of your profession. Then in the world we've built, we look at the people at the top of the profession and say we should all be like them, when the vast majority of them were driven there by internal shit. So our whole world is upside down. We have built a backwards world, which is fucked. And the people we are idolizing and trying to be like are fucked a lot of the time. Obviously, this doesn't apply to everybody. You can get to the top and be successful in different things without this stuff. But for the most part, the people we see, especially because they need, part of this is we need external validation. If that is you, you need external validation. The old me needed external validation. So you need, it's not good enough, it's not enough to be rich. You need to be rich and famous. There's a great quote from the Alain de Botton, who runs the School of Life, which I love, which is one of the greatest signs of a healthy child is they've got no desire to be famous. And it's funny because if you'd have asked me 10 years ago, what did I want? I wanted to be rich and famous. But now I'd rather be rich and anonymous because I don't need the fame anymore. I don't need external validation from strangers, which is, think about it, that's what fame is. You need to be validated by people you don't know. That is a massive indicator that you're full of shame. You don't feel good enough. We need this external validation all the time. And the purpose of sharing this now is, what I like to do is, wherever I am on this journey at different times, is share where I'm up to and how it's an ongoing process. So if you're raised to, and you've got this dysfunction inside you, which is very, very common in our society, but it's on a scale, it's not black and white. So different people are impacted in different ways to different extents. But if that is you, like me, this is not something you just fix overnight. This is an ongoing process. So I've been doing this work for 8 years now at the time I'm recording this. And where I've got to now, having cleaned out loads of the big picture stuff, is getting into the microscopic detail of how it still impacts my life. How the something I talk about with coaching clients and in my coaching program is the multiple parts of us. Lots of different names for this type of work in different places: internal family systems, part work, multiple personalities, characters. But whatever language you want to use, we've all created lots of different parts of us over the years since we were kids as a survival strategy to meet our needs. And those voices talk to us. We literally have those voices in the head of all of these different, in our heads in different parts. That often frightens people. It doesn't mean we're schizophrenic. It's just a normal part of being a human. Once you tune into them, it makes more sense. It's why you feel differently in different situations. It's why you act differently in different situations. It's why one time you can act like this and another time you can act completely differently. It's like, that doesn't make any sense until you realize there's different parts of you acting in different times. But those parts still talk to me after all these years of working on this stuff and working on self-esteem. There are still parts that talk to me in very small ways that still affect me. And now I'm working on it on a microscopic level. Basically, I've drilled right into it. And the big picture side of this is the antidote to shame, the antidote to not feeling good enough is empathy. Is empathy for the parts of us that don't feel good enough. The parts of us that were programmed since we were little kids, which is no one's fault. I often say this like shit rolling down a hill. Is to give empathy to that part of us. And this is the bit, it's funny when I talk about something like this publicly, because I don't know where you are on your journey as you listen to or watch this. But this is the type of stuff I save when I'm working with someone one-on-one or in my coaching program till way later on in the work I do, because especially with men, when I start talking about talking to our inner child, it sounds very woo-woo. It's very feminine. This is the type of stuff us men, macho men, want to push away. I always say this, like, if the me now was talking to the me from 10 years ago, the me from 10 years ago would tell me to fuck off. Just wouldn't be interested in any of this stuff. Just all bullshit, all nonsense. And over the years, I've slowly developed into the person I am now. I often joke that if those two people could meet, the me from 10 years ago and the me from now, the me from 10 years ago would say to me now, I don't know what's happened. Like, I don't know what happens over the next 10 years that I become you, but there's something gone fucking wrong because I am nothing like you. That's how much I've changed internally. I often say I should have like grown a big beard or something because I look very similar to how I did 10 years ago. I've aged obviously, but not a huge amount. But it's confused people because I've changed so much. I've changed internally. I just don't look like I have on the outside. So the key to this is, sadly, for men watching who will push this away, is to talk to the little kids inside us. For men, the little boy inside you, everybody else, women, any other gender, inner children, and fill them with empathy, basically seeing them and validating how shitty it's been for them, that these voices were there, this idea that they weren't good enough, that got brought up inside them and they've carried throughout life. When you tune into this more and more, you can see how it follows you around. This idea that and you can see it in people. It's actually quite sad. It's a quite sad thing to learn about humans when you can see it in more places. And if you are an empathic person and you can feel other people's pain, you can see them and really step into their shoes, as I can, and I've always been able to since I was a little kid. It's quite painful. It's quite sad to watch, because you start seeing then how patterns of behavior in our society, in many of the people I love, in many of the people I know, in my close life, and then I see online. You see patterns of behavior that is all driven by this, all driven by shame, all driven by not feeling good enough, constantly explaining ourselves, constantly justifying things, even fighting with other people and trying to get external validation for stuff. Social media is just everything I'm talking to you about is social media. It's 99% of social media. People constantly searching for validation, constantly arguing with each other because they're desperate to be certain and to be right, because they need to be right. And the way out of this is empathy. Going internally, empathizing with our younger selves, doing a load of deep emotional healing work, soothing them, feeling all of the emotions they've never been allowed to feel. And then after all of that, reprogramming our system to teach it that we don't have to do this anymore. This is all built on dysfunctional programming we've had since we were kids. I always talk about the analogy of we're like computers or laptops, that when we were born, we were pretty much blank with a few basic programs. And since then, we've been programmed with billions and billions of different programs since we were kids that turned us into who we are today. And the truth is, that programming isn't the real us. We can strip away the programming we don't want and replace it with stuff that makes us happier. The key is that we don't skip to that last step. And that's where most of the personal development and self-help worlds go wrong. The type of coaching programs I've seen over the years that I've used a lot of and trained, and they were great, and there's still some value in them, but they don't work for loads of people ultimately, because there's this deep subconscious programming that we need to overcome. And we need to do that by going into the emotions and really getting into the mucky stuff that most people want to avoid, just by staying at high level intellectual in our brains, which doesn't work for most people. But as I always say, it's different for different people. So you have to find what works for you. The stuff I talk about is for people who are like me, and this will resonate with. And there's a huge part as well of finding a balance. I often talk about taking radical responsibility. We want to find a balance between taking radical responsibility and being kind to ourselves and giving ourselves empathy. Because otherwise, by trying to change our life, all we're doing is adding to the shame cycle. So we beat ourselves up for being the way we are. We say we're not good enough. Then trying to change our lives repeats that story. We're not good enough. We're not good enough. We're not good enough. We've got to change. We've got to become someone else. So we have to find a balance in this, and it has to start with being kind to ourselves and giving ourselves empathy, which I've realized even in recent times, working at a deeper level with empathy and shame, that I've got wrong slightly over time. And I'd still been too much the other way, too much taking radical responsibility and pushing myself when it needed more empathy. And that's a big part of the journey. A big part of the journey is figuring shit out as we go along. And it's messy and it's uncomfortable at times. And I'll do another episode on how difficult the journey can be still for me behind the scenes at times, and how this work is the saving grace. Like it helps you to doing the work helps you to do more work, because it helps you to deal with the emotions that come up as you're doing it. If I hadn't done this work, I wouldn't have been able to evolve to where I have. And at the same time, I wouldn't be able to deal with the shit that comes up as I'm doing it. And the same point always applies, is that it takes time. So we have to be patient with all this stuff. If you want to do this stuff to change your life, go into it with your eyes open. I always make the analogy with personal training, getting fit. This is not just a one-time thing. You can't just go on a 3-day fitness regime and expect to be fit for the rest of your life. You've got to change the way you live your life slowly over time. That can sound daunting, but we're all changing all the time. You are a different person now to who you were 10 years ago. Whether you've made changes or not, things have changed. So it's just doing the same thing, but with being more conscious of it, making more specific decisions about who you want to be. And if you're watching things like this, if you're listening to things like this, it's probably because you're not as happy as you want to be. You're not as fulfilled as you want to be. So it's worthwhile starting to be more conscious about that. Start making changes now that make your life start moving towards where you want it to be. I hope that helps. As always, there's links below to free resources. You can join my free community and get some free stuff. Drop in the comments any questions you've got. I will respond to as many comments as I can. And if you've got any questions about any of this stuff and you want me to make specific content about anything, put it in the comments, get in touch through the website, and I'll do what I can to help. Hope you enjoyed that. Take care. See you next time.